You know what I'm saying?
Fuck the system.
You know what I'm saying, Hannah? You know what I mean?
Where's the mother nature? Where's the mother nature? Where's the mother nature?
Yeah, see it. All on there.
Where's the mother nature?
Okay, so like yesterday morning, what time did I wake up? Like 4 a.m. I think I woke up at 4 a.m. Yeah, so I woke up at 4 a.m. and then I started talking to Joel, and this was yesterday, March 2nd. And I started talking to Joel, and he came and gave me an out-of-body experience. And it was total blast, and I knew I was under the abduction the whole time. And it's only some different beings other than Joel that sometime they'll give me virtual reality experiences, and like they'll like confuse you and stuff, and they won't tell you that you're under the abduction or in an altered state, and they like screw with your brain like that. But Joel, with him, I always know I'm under the abduction when he abducts me. You know, there had been that one abduction where for the first few minutes I did not know that I thought I was just a normal 3D sitting on my couch. And then when he like picked me up off the couch and dragged me through the house, the physical walls, that's when I was like, oh shit, I'm being abducted. And that's when I knew, you know, the whole time I was under the abduction. But normally with Joel, from the very get-go, I know I'm under the abduction and in an altered state. But so anyway, okay, like all my life, the beings have been, like they'll duplicate, you know, your reality or whatever. And like down the street here, where Get and Go used to be, and now it's like Signal, and there's railroad tracks. See, I lived in this area like all my life pretty much. And we would walk down the railroad tracks a long time ago, me and my cousin and my sister and stuff. And so see, they put that in my scenarios, my virtual reality scenarios all the time, that exact same area. The last time they put that exact same area in one of my abductions was around 2014. And even And like I say, there was some more times, like around that same time, where they put that exact same part of town or whatever from my real reality and the experience. The other time was when that gray was standing in the doorway, tampering with my brain and giving my implants commands. He kept, I mean, and I was like so delved, into those realities that, like, when the gray would jar me awake, it's like a shock. It's a shock. Like, he was standing in the doorway. I'm pretty sure it was a gray. I mean, maybe it was a reptilian. I don't know, but I think it was a gray. And because they rarely put sexual things in my scenarios. And he was standing in the doorway because I kept hearing him standing there in the doorway, making noises in the floor. And he kept giving my brain commands, or my implant commands, like, no. And then I kept going on from lucid dream to lucid dream to lucid dream, and these were freaking virtual reality, except it just kept feeling like I was in other dimensions. And that's one of the things he did. He gave me that morning consecutive lucid dream after lucid dream after lucid dream. He kept giving me consecutive ones, and one time he jarred me awake between the lucid dreams, and then when I fell back to sleep, I went on to continue that exact lucid dream. And one of them that he gave me was that exact area I'm talking about, down the street here. And I was swimming, except they're always putting lakes. They're always putting a river right there, or lake. It's funny because when I'm in the scenario, it's so real, and I really think there had always, like, when I'm in the scenario, I'm thinking, yeah, there's always been like a lake right here. And then I wake up in 3D and I'm thinking, there's never been a lake right there or a river right there. But in my scenarios, they're always putting lakes and rivers right there. And that same duplicate part of, in 3D, my reality. When they take me in the altered states, they always put a river or lake right there. But yeah, but he was jarring me awake, that gray was, a couple times between lucid dream, lucid dream, lucid dream. And then, of course, once you're so entwined in that reality, and then they jar you awake, and then you pop back to this reality, it's like very shocking. It shocks you. It's very confusing, But anyway, okay, so yeah, and I'm sure they've given me many more too, many years ago. That same. Oh yeah. I can think of some other ones too, many years ago. But so anyway, yeah, they're always putting that same, like, bit of my reality down the street here in my altered states. Okay, so this abduction went down like this, and I know it was Joel that gave it to me, because he does the same things over and over again, sexual things. He okay, it started off, he put me on that street down here by Lone Pine and Signal, or Get and Go, or whatever, that street right there. I started off standing there. Okay, first of all, he put on each side of the street, he put a lake. So there was, or I don't know if you call it a lake or a river, but small, narrow lake. So I guess you call it a river, I don't know, but I'm calling it a lake. So there was a lake on one side of the street, and like a smaller, more of a what do you call that? A stream on the left side. And okay, so this is how it started. Like I say, he put that exact part of my reality in the scenario, the street, down the street here. And so anyway, I was standing there, and my mom, it's like we were going to the lake, to hang out and have a picnic. And my mom was sitting there in like a chair, like a plastic chair or whatever, in dirt, right there by the stream. Except she was across from me, and I was standing there, and I looked down in the stream, and there was a tortoise. Except it was pretty big, except it was like half the size of a full-grown tortoise. So it was still pretty damn big. And it was under the water. And then there was an ornate box turtle that was, under the water as well. And Dewie, my turtle, was on the land drinking the water. So he wasn't in the water, but he was on the land drinking the water. And I was thinking, wow, that's a Dewie, But the tortoise, that wasn't, I knew that wasn't like, those were just turtles that weren't, my turtles. But for whatever reason, he did put Dewie, which I really own in real life, in the scenario. Dewie was in the scenario. And the ornate box turtle was underwater too. It was like they were hibernating, but of course in real life, they don't hibernate underwater. But so there was like the tortoise, and then a few inches away to the right was an ornate box turtle. And then, but they both were underwater, and I was just looking at them like, wow, they're hibernating. And then I looked over to my left, and Dewie was on land, and I was standing there on land as well, and he was reaching down to drink water out of the water, or out of the stream. And then over to my right on the land was two or three turtles that were dead. They had been picked at by birds. So, there were holes in them on the top of their shells, and they were dead. They were just shells only. And I knew exactly what happened to them, that because sometimes birds will come down and do that to turtles. Not around here, but, he put that in there because I watched a YouTube video before about those desert turtles. That's why he put that in the scenario. But, okay, so anyway, and like I say, it was like me and my mom were going to a park, so to speak, except instead of going to a park, we went to the lake, so to speak, to hang out. And she was sitting across from me in a chair. I never did sit down. I was standing up the whole time. And of course, in this scenario, in real life, down the street from where we were at, in real life, down the street from that, exact same area, my grandma lives. And in this scenario, it was the same thing. We both knew, my grandma lived down the street. And so I told my mom, okay, this was still under the abduction and everything. I told my mom, after I looked at the turtles and everything, I told my mom, I said, okay, after I looked at all the turtles and she was sitting there just minding her own business, I told my mom, I said, hey, I'm going to go drive down the street and see if anybody has moved in my grandma's house, or to see if anybody has moved in grandma's house yet. Because a 70-year-old woman was supposed to move in, and she did finally move in. She didn't move in December like she said she was, but she did finally move in, and she was 70, which is kind of funny because when my grandma moved in that house, she was also 70 years old. But anyway, so in this abduction, I said that to my mom. I said, I'm going to go drive down the street and see if anybody moved in grandma's house yet, because my mom had been driving by there just to see if she moved in yet, and and blah 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 blah. So he put that in the scenario, that whole thought and everything. So anyway, at that point, instead of me actually getting into a car and driving down the street to go to my grandma's house just to see if the woman moved in yet, the woman that bought her house, at that point he made me go astral traveling and astral flying over to my right, over where the lake was at, the wider lake or river, whatever you want to call it. So at that point, I was flying, which was a total freaking blast. I was about, well, to tell you the truth, this is what was really weird because, well, actually, I guess I started off being higher because at first it seemed like I was like 20 feet above the water, And then, because at first when he started me out, I was flying pretty high over the river or lake. I was flying, and then I must have flew lower because at that point, I could see two boats. Two boats were just floating in the water over to my right, and they were like tealish, greenish color. They were metal boat, just a normal metal boat, small fishing boat. There were two of them over to my right, and this isn't the first time he's put that color in my scenario, a teal greenish color, and these metal boats were teal greenish. Okay, so at first when I first started flying over the lake, I was pretty high, And then I started flying lower. And I reached out to see if I could touch, because every time I'm out of body, I always like to touch things to see if they still feel physical. So I reached out to touch the boat, one of the boats, and I couldn't reach it because I was too far. My arm wasn't long enough. So I was not able to touch the boat, but I tried to. I reached my arm out there and I tried to. And both boats didn't have anybody in them. Those two boats were over to my right, and they were just floating, not very far from each other, but they were just floating. They were just normal fishing boats, but there was nobody inside them. Okay, so as I was still flying, I looked over to my left, and there was another boat, and it was also teal color, like greenish teal color. And now that boat there was a college. I mean, he looked like he was about college age. There was a man in the boat. And he was a little farther away compared to the two boats that were to the right of me as I was flying and astral traveling. So over to my left, he was a little farther away from me, but and he looked about college age. And they're always putting people in my scenarios that, about college age or whatever. And this is the funny part. I wonder, because I have been kind of really mad lately, so he kind of made me mad and mean in this scenario. So anyway, I flipped him off, and he was just a complete stranger. I completely, flipped him off. I flipped him the bird, and, I held it, for a long, long time, for many, 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 many seconds. Fuck you. Many, many, many seconds, I held it. It wasn't just, for 2 seconds. It was many, many, many seconds as I was astral traveling. I flipped him off. And just fuck you, many, many, many seconds. And then, a few minutes later, this is kind of funny, but he flipped me off back, fuck you. So he did flip me off back, which is kind of funny. And two, Joel could have been mocking. Well, I think he did that because he knew that I was kind of mad and sad because of my turtle and because of that stupid ass chemical spill in my bedroom and shit last weekend or whatever. Oh, I found another thermometer too in my on the refrigerator, and in the refrigerator, the thermometer dilly bobber that has that red shit in it. And well, tomorrow I'm gonna go stick that in that Christian Foundation box. And then that magnet that was on my refrigerator, my mom was over here and she spotted it. And I'm like, well, take that damn thing down, man. So she took it over to her house, but I'm going to get it and throw it away. So anyway, yeah, so it's like he knew that I don't know, I had been mad or whatever. Or he could have been mocking the fact that I did flip a couple people off a long time ago, or several months ago or whatever, at the bookstore. So maybe he was just mocking that. But, so anyway, that part was kind of funny. Okay, so there's really not too much more to this scenario, but I'm going to try to think, see if I'm forgetting anything. Okay, the turtles, the lake, the boats, the flipping off. Okay, so anyway, so after I did all the total blast part, the astral traveling part and everything, and I tried to, like I say, the color was about exactly this color right here, like tealish greenish. And that is not the first time he's put that color. He put a Honda Civic in one of my virtual reality scenarios. Well, actually, it may not have been Joel, but it could have been. That's not the first time they put that color in my scenario. And so anyway, so after flying over the lake, over to my right is this little seedy city, or seedy part of the city. And I know why he put that in my scenario, because a day before this experience, we were talking about how skanky some part of Branson, Missouri is, some little town outside of Branson, Missouri, how meth headish and skanky it is. I don't know, I've never been there, so I don't know. Rockaway Beach. And they were saying, oh yeah, no parts of that is nice or anything, it's all skanky and stuff, because my Texas friend that came up here, she had drove around there and she acted like, oh, it's so beautiful, but she must have just been on the lake or something. Because apparently it's just all meth headish around that area. And so we were talking about that, before he gave me this experience. So he, and so so I, when we, when they were talking about that seedy place or whatever, and you kind of think about prostitutes and stuff like that. Anyway, I do anyway. So anyway, I guess that's why he put prostitutes and everything else in this scenario. Okay, so anyway, so after I started flying over the lake and everything, after that was the fun part, the blast part, then like boom, I end up in the seedy little area. I was still outdoors. It was still daytime. I was outdoors in the seedy little area of the town. And so I saw some homeless men walking around, and I saw one woman that appeared to me to be a prostitute. And I do remember she had a purse in her hand. And it did seem like I maybe said some things, and maybe she talked to me too. And like I say, there could have been some more talking with me and my mom too, that I just can't remember. But it does seem like I did, because I remember standing there really, really, really close to her, and I figured she was a prostitute. And so like I say, I could be forgetting some things that we said to each other or whatever, but I do remember she had a purse and everything, and she seemed to be a prostitute to me. And some of the other guys walking around, they were homeless people. And so then, lo and behold, Joel ends up placing me in like a novelty shop, kind of like a porn shop, but more of like a novelty shop, which is kind of like a porn shop. That's not the first time he's put me in a porn shop either. And so at that point, off of this seedy area, the seedy outdoor area, off of that area was a little shop, and I ended up being in the shop. Or he places me in the shop, indoors, after I started walking around the seedy little area of the town. So then I started looking around, and I started seeing I started like kind of concentrating on some of the packages and stuff that I saw hanging up. And some of the packages seemed like condoms and stuff. But damn, some of the other things that I saw, I can't remember, but some of them, the little packages were like condoms. And that's what I'm saying. When you're in these scenarios, when it's little bitty detail things, you really got to like concentrate hard, so you don't forget. But so some of the little details, what was hanging up, I forgot, the exact details. But some of them were like condoms. And then another part, when I was looking at the little packages of condoms or whatever, I ended up being placed on the ground. I was sitting on the ground, and he's always like sitting me on the ground. And then I started reaching up, and I started looking at a little, what do you call it? A case of sunglasses. Like, you know how sunglasses, they put them on those little round things that spin around? And I started looking at the sunglasses. And I remember taking a pair of the sunglasses off, and for whatever reason, I popped out one of the lenses. And I was holding it in my left hand, and I was looking at the lens. And but like I say, I don't know why he put that in there. I don't know why. But so then there was some sexual things and stuff like in this scenario. And also, like when he puts me in these scenarios and I'm totally conscious, I'm under the abduction the whole time, I'm always thinking, all right, I hope this can like last forever and ever and ever and ever. And then of course it never does. But I was thinking that when he placed me on the ground, and then he started doing like sexual things and stuff, I started thinking, okay, I want to be in this scenario like forever or whatever. And then the last thing, I climaxed, and then boom, it was over with. Like, I don't know why he had to end it so fast like that. But sometimes he does, sometimes these beings, they end the scenarios like really, really, really fast. I mean, like super fast. But anyway, he does the same things in my scenarios all the time. Like he makes me climax, or, he sets me on the ground. He does that a lot. Except I wasn't on the ground, I was on the floor of that little shop, the little seedy novelty shop, porn shop or whatever. But I do know, I remember seeing, specific things in little packages hanging on the wall. And, when you're in these scenarios, you got to concentrate like really hard, especially when it comes to little details like that, so you don't forget. when you wake up, but I already know I forgot exactly what some of those packages, what was in those packages. I forgot some of, what I saw or whatever, some of the little things or whatever they were, what I saw. But I know some of them were the little, were like little condoms, and then the sunglasses, I totally remember that part, looking at the sunglasses, and for whatever reason, I popped out one of the lenses. And it seemed like the lens was also colored, as far as I remember. It wasn't black. It seemed like it was like either a blue lens or a red lens, but it wasn't black. So anyway, but yeah, so this was a pretty fun experience because, sometimes he won't make me astral travel and fly and stuff. And other times, yeah, he'll take me on astral travel trips and start flying and stuff, and I'll be flying, and he'll be honoring, and he'll make me like start getting really heavy, like I'm sinking. And I hate that. I hate when he does that, and I know he's doing that on purpose. But this time he did not do that. He did that in that abduction where the tornado abduction in Kansas City, that one. He made me fly back and forth in between buildings. I was with another woman too, flying around. In between buildings, like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I was astral traveling, back and forth, and it was total blast. And he made me get heavy. And I was like, how do I, get my body back up or whatever. He's doing that on purpose. But anyway, this scenario, he made me light as a feather the whole time. It was total blast. But anyway, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. Let's see here. But anyway, when I did flip off the man, I felt really mean and mad. You know what I mean? When I was flipping him off for whatever reason. And like I say, I think it's because I've been really not mean, but mad lately because of my turtle and because of that chemical spill in my bedroom. But anyway, it was a fun experience, and my mom was in it, and Dewie the turtle was in it, and an ornate box turtle. But in the scenario, I wasn't thinking, I wasn't having thoughts like, oh, like that's my ornate box turtle. I wasn't exactly thinking that. But Dewie, when I saw Dewie, like I knew that he was like I owned a turtle named, I knew that was my turtle, so to speak. But I wasn't thinking those thoughts about like Ortega or anything when I saw the ornate box turtle. But when I saw Dewie, it's like I knew he was my turtle, which is kind of stupid because why would I, let him go in that river or in that stream? You know what I mean? But anyway, it was a fun experience. Okay, so thanks for listening.